Peskies Pest Control. Put your bugs on the run. Call 205-470-8161.
Welcome to another episode of Peskies Pest Control Podcast here in Birmingham, Alabama with Michael and Travis. We do this podcast as a community service for Birmingham, Hoover, Vestavia Hills, Mountain Brook, Helena, Alabaster, Pelham, and all other surrounding areas. Hey, so here today on the Peskies Pest Control Podcast, we're going to talk about crane flies or skeeter eaters. What are some other names?
Mosquito hawks.
Mosquito hawk, tarantula flyer. I've heard all kinds of names. Daddy long legs, all that kind of stuff. So
I feel like in Alabama, it's getting harder to differentiate between real mosquitoes and crane flies because I feel like the real mosquitoes are getting bigger. But that's a conversation for another day.
Well, let's see. May it rained, I think, every other day. So
it's still raining every other day.
Yes, it is still raining every other day. So I think the biggest takeaway from here with mosquito hawks or crane flies are that they are not mosquitoes. They do not bite. They do not cause any issues. Like mosquitoes, they just kind of buzz around and are extremely annoying.
Yes, but unlike mosquitoes, they, like you said, they don't bite. They don't consume, human or animal blood as their primary source of food. And even after, the larvae emerge into adults, the adults really don't even they hardly consume anything before they, do their reproductive cycle and then basically just die.
Yeah. 10 to 15 days and they're goners. And really they're just kind of bouncing around. Like we get calls from customers. They'll say, hey, I've got a very large mosquito I've never seen before, or a very large mosquito buzz around the house. And that's typically what it turns into, is a crane fly issue, which there's no treating an adult crane fly. It's just they fly around, they die, and then they start back over spring to fall.
Right. And I mean, honestly, their primary focus or primary, I guess, benefit to the environment is that they're basically, one, decomposers. So, and I'm going to assume that's probably more on the larval side where they've, laid whatever eggs they're going to lay, the larvae hatch and probably feed on organic matter around the soil, decomposing things, probably very much like a termite does, just returning those items into the soil and enriching the soil. And then the other thing is like just being a food source for other animals, for things such as, fish, other insects, birds, bats, and just other animals. I'm sure probably, lizards and things like that too. So when they emerge in large numbers, and like you said, customer calls, they're flying around inside your house because inevitably once you open the door, they're going to come flying in. In those times when they're kind of ballooning in their population, that's when other animals get to feed on them and use them as one of their food sources.
Ecosystem.
Yep, and it works out really well for everybody involved. Well, I guess except for the crane fly.
Except for the crane fly. Well, let's talk about the damage that they do cause. So one thing that they can cause damage to the grass, the larval stage, which that's where they spend 90% of their life is underground. They can destroy root systems and cause a little bit of damage to your grass.
Right, and the larvae actually look like, I guess you could say, little worms or really, really small, thin grubs. Maybe some people would describe them as that. But a lot of people refer to them, I guess, because of they've got like a darkish brown color, but a lot of them refer to the larvae as leather jackets. And like you said, the adults really don't damage anything, but leather jackets can certainly hurt lawns and gardens. They'll feed on plant roots and, I'm sure could either kill your grass or kill your plants, or definitely make your yard, off-colored or something like that too. So certainly could become a nuisance to someone who really likes a very manicured, well-watered and lush lawn or lush, group of plants in a garden.
Yeah, definitely. I just lost my train of thought. So we're talking about the larval stage. Oh, where they like to breed. So biggest thing is going to be always a water source, major water source, marshes, ponds. They're always going to lay eggs kind of near that area. That's going to help those eggs thrive. And of course, you're going to have a lot of crane flies during the spring and fall.
Right, and it just depends on what breed of crane fly there are. Here in Alabama, most of the time, like you said, spring into summer, you're going to get your biggest group of population. But there's even a European crane fly that will actually start to hatch and grow, from the August to September, sliding over from late summer into early fall as well. So, there's really a large time block when you as a customer may actually see them. Just know that they could be different species, but they're about the same in terms of what they do, how they act, how they reproduce, and that sort of thing. So really not one species to be alarmed about more than any other. I mean, it's about the same across the board.
Right, and they all kind of look similar, like you said, but they are size comparisons. So I've seen some that are almost half the size of what I guess our standard crane fly. I would say probably 2 inches long, roundabout.
Right, probably on the high end, and I know that makes people a little nervous to see that sitting on their wall, or to come essentially swooping down while you're trying to walk through a doorway or walk outside, and kind of their erratic flight behavior may especially scare your kids or something, and they're walking by them, but certainly harmless, certainly can't do anything to you, and other than just really being more of a nuisance than anything.
Well, so I think the takeaway is if you see a bunch of crane flies buzzing around your house, just watch the ping pong effect, and they'll go away in about 10 to 15 days.
And they are not mosquitoes.
Not mosquitoes, yes. Thank you for listening to the Peskies Pest Control Podcast here in Birmingham, Alabama, with Michael and Travis. If you have any questions about what we've discussed today, please give us a call at 205-470-8161. And as for me, Michael Wienecke, I'll be happy to speak with you anytime. And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends and subscribe to us on Apple, Amazon, Google, and Spotify. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Google Peskies Pest Control. Put your bugs on the run. Call 205-470-8161.